The Locked On Podcast Network presents the NBA Big 3 in 30. The 3 biggest stories in the NBA from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The NBA Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest stories in the NBA.
JJ Redick called Thursday's 113-110 win over Sacramento, perhaps his favorite of the season.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast.
Lakers off to a really good start in this little mini series that they're playing. Anthony Davis was a huge part of this win. Again, JJ Redick calls it probably his favorite of the year. Want to let everybody know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with a $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. I think there were many reasons when you go through balanced defensive effort, a little bit of grit and intensity that really Redick was referencing when he called it his favorite win of the year. But I think it starts, and it started for JJ, I think, too, in his post game. It started with Anthony Davis.
He mentioned how it speaks to what Anthony Davis can do, not just as a complete player, but especially defensively, when he can have a night where he goes 7 of 20 from the field and still makes this just incredible impact. 21 points, again, inefficient night from the field, but got to the line 9 times, made 7 of those attempts, 20 rebounds, 8 on the offensive glass, 6 blocks and countless shots altered, 3 steals, 4 assists, and, you know,
and a partridge in a pear tree. I mean, it's a long list of stuff.
What I was going to say is, you know, obviously the mano-a-mano with him and Domantas Sabonis is always something that is going to get monitored because of AD's bad history in this particular matchup. And it even, you know, it dates back to when Sabonis was still with the Pacers for the brief time there was that overlap while AD was with the Lakers. And Sabonis has the cleaner line, 18 points on 8 of 12 shooting, 12 rebounds, 9 assists. I mean, 2 blocks. It certainly was not a bad game by any stretch for Sabonis, but the impact between these two guys was not even close. Like Anthony Davis's overall impact and presence in this game was better than Sabonis's. It just was.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And you know, we have made a point on this show, and you, I think, have really leaned into this on the show, that, you know, the Lakers take a lot of their cues from LeBron. You know, when LeBron is able to play with commitment and energy on the defensive side of the ball, the Lakers,
which he did tonight.
He did, no question. The Lakers, you know, that it shows, it bleeds through to the rest of the team. And I think that was true on Thursday. And we can talk about, you know, what that looked like offensively, and some of the balance that the Lakers got that makes this possible. But Anthony Davis is the tone setter on both sides of the ball. And, like, you know, when LeBron can do X, Y, and Z, it elevates the team, it sends a message. But fundamentally, what they do defensively starts with AD. And the first, I don't know, 8 minutes, his first shift, if you want to call it that, in this game on Thursday was so good, in not just in the statistical production, but in that tone setting way. He was, from the get-go, aggressive. He was mobile. He was disruptive. And you could just tell, like, the Lakers were going to be able to play this game knowing they had, okay, we got that guy. And the energy that they played with, particularly again early, which was when really the only time of the game that they were good on both sides, as opposed to just defensively, That sprung from AD. It was incredibly impressive to me.
To your point, in the first quarter, Anthony Davis, 9.5 minutes, 6 points, 7 rebounds, 2 on the offensive glass, 2 steals, 2 blocks. People have asked me before about, with LeBron, like why do the other players take their cues from a 40-year-old? Like, that's not reasonable. They shouldn't require, like, this is not a specific current Lakers and LeBron thing. This is something that happens in multitudes of ways with all teams and all superstars. Like, Brian and I covered the last 10 years of Kobe's career, and we were around that team like on a daily boots on the ground basis. Those players took their cues from Kobe in a lot of different ways. I mean, that's just normal for all teams. Like, they took the best parts of Kobe as far as their cues. They took the worst part of Kobe's as far as their cues. And I guarantee if you went around the league and talked to friends or just listened to like different channels, Locked On Network, talking about those teams they cover and their superstars, it's the same thing. It's interesting though, like as far as with AD and LeBron, as far as, like I'm trying to place this the way I want to, like, because you said something I thought was interesting, the idea of AD setting a tone and LeBron guys taking their cues. And I think sometimes with LeBron, when he doesn't put in that activity and like just sort of that engagement level defensively, it gives a permission structure for the other guys to follow suit. Whereas with AD, the tone is just the like, okay, this is the game we're going to be playing. You know what I mean? Like it's like,
this is where we are tonight. Okay,
right? It's like setting a thematic foundation for what they're going to be doing. Like, it's the way the story opens. That might be the best way I would distinguish.
Yeah,
and both these guys are responsible. Both these guys are responsible for it. It's not just LeBron; it's AD as well.
It's a better framing than sort of what I was just kind of thinking of in terms of, AD is just as your best player, but it does it kind of breaks that down, I think, on a finer point. And we'll get into this. They play on Saturday again, and you re-enter a more normal NBA cadence. I was thinking watching this game, it's like if the NBA ever decided to scrap the regular season and have kind of an Olympic style tournament with like a tournament with an Olympic schedule, the Lakers would in fact be a team to watch in that format, because this is like the third or fourth game in a row now where their defensive energy, not always the results, but the defensive energy.
Results were pretty good tonight, though.
The results were very good, and the results were good against Memphis. I'm just saying, like on every play, like
sure.
This is the NBA. You hold a team to 100 points, you're doing something right.
Sacramento entered this game averaging almost 117 points a game.
Yeah, I mean you're doing good things here. And how they got there, we'll talk about this, as the show goes on. How they got there was really important. And one of the things when Redick talks about this as his favorite win of the year, it's the stuff that they did on that side of the ball, or to control the pace even while they were missing shots that he's referencing. But the real key to seeing whether or not this change, I will call it, from what they were doing defensively in the worst of their losing streak is permanent. Like, we will find out over the next 2 weeks when they do play every other day if this is, maybe they really have turned a corner and discovered something.
Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more near you. You can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime.
Embarrassing loss to the New York Knicks, and Cats return to Target Center.
You are Locked On Timberwolves, your daily Minnesota Timberwolves podcast.
Karl-Anthony Towns returns to Target Center on Thursday night. Obviously an emotional night. Timberwolves have won 6 out of 7. The Wolves haven't played since Sunday. The Knicks haven't played since Sunday. There's so many storylines coming into this game. Such buildup. The first quarter is fantastic. It's a really fun game. High quality basketball on both ends of the floor. A little bit of a rough end to the quarter, which then kind of led us into a really kind of a snowball, a snowball of a game for the Wolves. Things got out of control pretty quickly in this one in Cat's return. Ultimately, the Timberwolves end up losing by 26 points, and it really wasn't even that close. Where do you want to start with this one, Jack?
I want to start with something non-basketball related, because there are zero, and for my money, there are zero positive takeaways from this basketball game. And I will say, I was more excited to come to this game and kind of see the sights and sounds of this game than arguably almost any game we've seen this season. We've all had this game circled as Karl-Anthony Towns returned to Target Center. I don't think anyone really, anticipated it going anything like what we saw with Kirk Cousins when he returned to Minnesota, just because I think the ties and the relationships with Karl-Anthony Towns run so much deeper, and he's just an amazing person off the court. And I think, I've gotten texts from people and had conversations with friends and even people with the Knicks of like, how do you remember Karl-Anthony Towns' time as a Timberwolf? And I'll just say, first and foremost, he was just a grade A human being. And I think that's the first thing that anybody that you talk to, whether it be his former teammates, former coaches, fans, people that work in the arena, Timberwolves, front office people, other staff members on the social team, whatever it may be. And I think that just speaks volumes about it. And you saw that really stand out in the pregame warm up for Karl. Karl has traditionally always warmed up as one of the last 2 guys to take the floor for warm-ups. He did that during his time with the Timberwolves as well. And so there were always a lot of fans in the lower bowl watching him warm up, and he always had AirPods in, always. Last season before that, always wore AirPods while he was warming up. Tonight, he noticeably did not have AirPods in. There was a pretty large contingent of fans with signs wearing Karl-Anthony Towns jerseys, all of it that were very eager to see him, that gave him a very warm reception as he stood out, as he, came back out on the floor. I don't think he was expecting that many people to be there that early, waiting to see him with showing that much love. And it was really cool to see. He wanted to hear all the things the fans were saying as he was taking his warm-up shots. He definitely did not get up as many normal warm-up shots as he would normally, because he was interacting with fans and media members. He was dapping everyone up, pointing at little, Timberwolves fans, acknowledging them, just showing everybody the love that they were showing him. And I thought it was really cool that Knicks security and team staff members essentially had to like drag him off the warm-up floor before the game, because there were so many fans that wanted an autograph, that wanted a photo, that just wanted any sense of acknowledgement. And he refused to leave the court until almost every single fan that was there had either a photo, reached out, touched hands, signed an autograph, whatever the case may be. And I think that just really speaks to Karl's character. And I thought that was a really cool moment for him to be able to have that going on while Spike Lee's sitting with his dad, watching him warm up, and his dad is taking it all in, greeting people as well. And I think that was something that was really cool, that I think I will remember for quite some time. And you saw, I tweeted out a 3-minute or so long video earlier tonight that I'd encourage people to go check out on Twitter at the handle that you see there on the screen. Just of him interacting with Ant and Rudy Gobert and Chris Hines and some of the other Timberwolves staff members. You see Ant in the video, you see Ant come and dap up Karl Sr. You see Ant and Karl take a photo with 3 or 4 young Timberwolves fans that were standing there courtside. And it was just kind of weird to see Karl in a different uniform, and really brought you back to kind of the vibe of last season. And I think that was what made last year's team so special, is that everyone was so incredibly tight knit with one another, and they all got along great. And that really, shone through on the floor, and that it was a team that played really hard all year, that played really connected basketball. And I think Karl was at the heart of a lot of that, because you heard a lot of the ways that guys like Mike Conley and Jaden McDaniels spoke about Karl, and how active he was in the group chat, and just like how, much of kind of a social maven he was. And Rudy talked about the different ways that he tried to connect with Rudy when he got traded here. They would watch, MMA fights together. They would play Call of Duty. Karl would constantly invite him over to his house to do anything. And I think, it's kind of a good segue into what we're seeing with this Timberwolves team right now, is just that there are some pretty big shoes to fill. And Karl-Anthony Towns, the basketball player, has like size 19, size 20 shoes, and leaves behind a pretty huge wake. But to me, I think they miss Karl-Anthony Towns, the person, and what he did in that locker room, and how he brought everybody together, and how that kind of fun-loving, infectiously positive and warm personality rubbed off on everyone, and kind of helped galvanize everything. And, yes, you don't necessarily miss the crazy passes that we saw in the first quarter, the almost charges, some miscommunications with teammates trying to get rebounds, things like that. But that all pales in comparison to, I think, all the positives that he brought. And with the Timberwolves right now, I mean, we can just go to that second quarter. Naz Reid had a nice ode to Karl with 3 first quarter fouls. A couple of which were pretty head scratching. So he was sitting when he was normally in the game. And I think that kind of threw the Timberwolves rotation all out of whack a little bit. You had a lineup of Rob Dillingham, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Dante DiVincenzo, Jaden McDaniels, and Rudy Gobert in there at the start of the second quarter. And they just could not generate any sort of offense whatsoever. I think Ant exited with like 45 seconds left in the first quarter. And Randall, after a really excellent first quarter for Julius Randle, I think he had 13 points and looked like it was shaping up to be a very funny game, and that Randall's trying to spoil, Karl's return, and was playing very well. And then the train kind of came off the tracks at the end of the first quarter, had that inexplicable turnover that led to an OG Anunoby layup right before the end of the first quarter. And things just kind of spiraled from there. It was a 21-2 Knicks run that ballooned to a 26-2 run in the first 6 minutes of the second quarter, and it just kind of ended from there. And like I was saying, with Naz getting in foul trouble, kind of created some weird lineups. I think just in a way, it kind of spotlighted where this Timberwolves team has really struggled all year long with Ant off the floor, and that they just haven't been able to find enough consistent offensive creation. And especially on really the first night I can remember all year that Naz Reid's been in foul trouble, there just wasn't a whole lot there behind him, especially in the rebounding department either. And even with Gobert in there, it was just a team that was kind of getting killed on the glass and was really struggling to get rebounds in important moments. There were some backbreaking offensive rebounds that led to kick out threes that just took the energy out of the building. And again, like I said, it was a 21-3 Knicks run in the 4 minutes that Anthony Edwards sat. But even when he returned, he was mighty passive. And he just kind of let Randall, mess around with the basketball and kind of do whatever he wanted to, and just kind of approach the game with a really lethargic energy that I think rubbed off on his teammates. And then, we've talked about the energy that Julius Randle has kind of brought to this team, and in the vibe that he has brought, which has not necessarily been, very good. I just think there was a lot of moaning and groaning from this Timberwolves crowd with each possession that the two of them kind of wasted away and didn't take control of or bring anything positive to. The Timberwolves didn't run very many plays at all. It was just kind of haphazardly bringing the ball up, setting one screen, making one pass, taking a shot, or dribbling into the lane and turning it over. The Wolves started 1 of 5 with 2 turnovers, while the Knicks are 6 of 11 with no turnovers and 3 offensive rebounds in the first couple minutes. And then, and I thought it was a lot of bad offense that fueled bad defense, where the Knicks played a lot in transition and semi-transition, and the Wolves just didn't get matched up. They couldn't get their defense set. And again, I think that a lot of that tone was being set by their 2 stars, with Ant just being passive and not playing with a whole lot of energy, and Randall just sucking the soul out of Target Center in that second quarter. I think it's a game where when you look at the box score, it doesn't really do it justice. I think you have to watch the game and really be able to hear what was going on in the arena, because fans, with every time Randall touched the ball, were just kind of groaning of like, oh boy, what's going to happen now? I mean, there was a moment in the second quarter, I believe, where Randall had a wide open kick out pass to one of two guys on the wing. And the crowd is like screaming, like, these guys are wide open. Like, how do you not see this? And eventually passed it when it was too late. And it's just those type of, and I think there was a tweet that Barflon Tito sent out too of Randall's off ball defense, in transition after he missed a three, doesn't get back and gives up a layup. I mean, it's just those types of things that the crowd notices and just takes the air out of the building. And again, I think is just the antithesis of that vibe that Karl-Anthony Towns brought to the team last year. And I think, again, when Randall doesn't really fit the identity of the team, I think you can kind of make up for some of that if you're bringing a really good vibe to the team. But I just don't think he's doing that. And when neither of those things are working, especially in a year where he's an expiring contract, I just really think you start to look at how long is too long before you press that trade button, because the vibe that he is bringing is permeating through the rest of the team right now in a really unfortunate way.
Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. You can look at the first round of the college football playoff for that wager. None of the lines for the first rounds are particularly close, but one game has a double-digit spread. FanDuel has Texas favored over Clemson by 11.5. The Tigers have to go to Arlington for that game. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
It is mercifully over.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I mean, if you want to put this game in a microcosm, there's two plays, I guess two statistics, two events that happened during the game that really tell the entire story. Let's start with A. This was the worst game of the Steph Curry era. And you say, come on, Chuck, that can't be true. I mean, we could go back over the years and there's a game where there was a dud here and there and it was worse than this. No, it wasn't worse than this. Steph Curry goes 0 of 7 in the game, 2 points. The only time in his career that he plays more than 10 minutes and fails to hit a field goal. Aside from that, it was 37-15 after the first quarter, 37-15, down 22 points. And the way the Warriors started this game, it puts it in a nutshell. They committed a foul before the opening tip. Kevon Looney fouled Zach Edey on the opening tip. And I was listening to Clint Azubuike real time. He's like, that's not a good start. And then it was a turnover. That's not a good start. And then Dennis Schroeder, who makes his debut for the Warriors, goes 2 of 12 in the game. That's not a good start. It's not a good result. This game sucked. It sucked. The Warriors owe everyone an apology. The fact that I had to spend a glorious night of my life watching that basketball game, an atrocity. I would rather go to the Home Depot for 3 hours. And my dad used to take me there as a punishment back in the day than watch this basketball game. I'd rather watch Pootie Tang and Russian. I'd rather do so many things than go back and have to watch that game. It was an embarrassment. And quite frankly, I am not one that ever rags on Steve Kerr because the Steve Kerr, that it's all his fault. I don't believe that much in the art of coaching when it comes to a possession here and there that's decided in the second quarter of a game. What I do believe in coaching in is when a team does not show up. The Golden State Warriors did not show up today. They were not ready to play basketball. Welcome to the show, Kolsky. Sorry for that rant.
Great rant. I am a little concerned with a couple of things you said. First of all, I'm not okay with what you just said about Home Depot. That's one of my favorite places. For those of us
Everyone's built different, man.
for those of us that like
hate
handle
hardware.
a hammer now and then,
Yeah.
Chuck, Home
I'm not a
Depot's
carpenter.
a veritable heaven. So calm down. Also, Pootie Tang, great movie. Maybe not.
I said in Russian. Yeah,
Fair point. But I bet the sounds are the same.
Yeah.
I bet Wanate and it's the same in Russian. Anyway, all right, that's beside the point.
Home Alone 4. How about that? Go ahead.
I will do anything to avoid talking about this game, if you can't tell. That is, I'm trying not to be hyperbolic, but I can't remember. I've watched a lot of basketball. I watched the Bulls of early Tyson Chandler and Eddie Curry. I watched the Warriors before the Steph Curry era. I was in LA and watched a fair number of Clipper games in the early 2000s. And I can't remember watching that pathetic of a basketball game in my life. I put my hood on because I didn't have a paper bag to put over my head. I can't fully understand what just happened. Every NBA team, Bob and Kalena said this, doing their best to look. Thankfully, Bob and Kalena is a pretty entertaining talk show because that's all we had for the second half of this game. There was no.
Can you imagine if they weren't? If
oh my God!
Calling the X's and the O's. That's why in broadcasting we need more entertainment and less. And here's Curry off the screen, hits the three. Wait 10 seconds of natural sounds because the only takeaway from this one for me, a positive, you didn't even see it, was a cut-in where they showed Quentin Post and Kyle Anderson feeding children in turkey hats.
I believe 2-0 on challenges tonight. So bite your tongue. But
and Wiggins and Pods. I mean, that's two guys that stepped up in the game today. But
listen, we can get to the point where we're saying hopefully this is something to build on for Pods, but effort wasn't there, focus wasn't there, obviously execution wasn't there. And like Bob and Kalena said, like we've said before, like we said in Cleveland when they got their butts kicked, right? This happens a few times a year to everybody in terms of you lose ugly and you just don't have it that night.
That wasn't ugly. That was pulseless.
When you combine that with a pathetic effort, this is what happens. And the pathetic effort part of it just is not, I was going to say not acceptable, but that's not the right word because
it's not like this team. They fought hard. You could say a lot of things about this team, even in Cleveland. They at least made it competitive to the standard of that game in the second half. Like this was just, it was lifeless. We're getting trade the whole teams in the chat. We're actually getting good viewership on the show tonight because everyone just wants to vent. It was that bad. Draymond Green's stat line in the game today in 19 minutes, 0 points, 0 assists, 0 rebounds, 0 of 4 from the floor. What's the good stuff? 4 turnovers, 4 personal fouls, a minus 42.
That's it. How? In 19 minutes, minus 42. That's got to be some kind of record. What is the record for the nastiest plus minus in less than 20 minutes? I can't imagine anyone has been worse than minus 42 in less than 20 minutes. And look, Steph and Draymond barely played in the second half, right? But
yeah,
I do think that, and Kalena kind of said this, like when you have a night that's just not your night, it's a schedule loss and things go totally south, you throw the tape out. I don't think you can throw the tape out here because this was the worst case scenario of problems that the Warriors really have. They came out, they fouled on the opening tip, which is, there are other things that I previously would have said is the worst foul you can take in the NBA, but that's the new one. I didn't even consider that possibility. And look, it's a silly call, but come on, man. You foul on the opening tip, you throw the ball away totally carelessly, and it was Steph and Draymond doing it 3 or 4 times in the first quarter. These are the things that are killing you even when you are playing well. And man, if they don't come out absolutely gangbusters in Minnesota.
Scary season.
It is. It really is. And like 14-12, we knew this team wasn't going to be the 1 seed all year long, right? Like where they're at.
Are they out of the plan at this point?
Well, that doesn't matter to me that much because where they're at, broadly speaking, isn't a huge problem for me. Going 2-8 in the last 10 and having a handful of lackluster looking performances and then this, like, it is a problem. This is not good. And, again, I'm not going to overreact like some of the comment section will do because it is still just 1 of 82 and you can bounce back and they could win 8 of their next 10. Who knows? But that's the most concerning Warriors performance from a effort and focus standpoint that I can remember, certainly since Steph Curry became the leader of this team.
And how many points did the Mavericks just score the other night? Was it 147?
It was in the ballpark. Yeah, I don't remember.
Grizzlies go with 144. The Mavericks
and almost got
50% from 3 in their game. The Grizzlies hit a franchise record, almost set the NBA record for 3-pointers in the game. They shoot it a robust 56% from 3. So I don't know if the opposition has found Calvin Cambridge's shoes and they put those things on and they're just balling. I don't know what the hell's going on. I think it's just the rotations are terrible. The perimeter defense sucks. I don't want to get ahead of my skis, Kolsky.
Everything
just
sucked
a couple
tonight,
of games.
right?
This is a top 5 defense, we thought. A top 5 defense that looked – they didn't even look like they could hold a candle up to the Memphis Grizzlies. I mean, after tonight, I'm wondering, did the Warriors just make a grave mistake, bringing someone in? I mean, at the end of the day, like bringing in Schroeder for a couple of seconds, even worst case scenario, they fall off a cliff. It doesn't truly matter at the end of the day. I mean, it was a gamble you were probably willing to take. But my God, man, I mean, let's look at some positive light from this one. I mean, I guess Moses Moody didn't play. Like maybe it'd be a different story.
At least we can't blame this on Moses Moody.
Yeah,
Moses
too much
Moody.
pods? Did we get too much pods in today's game?
Moody not stained by
pods.
this.
9 of 13 for 21. Literally one of the best games of his career. 6 assists. Andrew Wiggins just he's unbothered by the effort from the rest of his team. He played excellent in the game. So there's 2 guys that showed up. Everyone else for the Golden State Warriors, it was an abomination. It was a travesty. It was a train wreck. It was disgusting. It was a disgrace to humanity. It was 5 minutes in the chair. I mean, it was adjective after adjective.